The largest freshwater lake in the world by surface area, Lake Superior, sits just 5.5 hours north of us. But it's getting warmer. Fast. Even if you never go to Lake Superior for recreation or tourism, it affects all of us due to its large amount of fresh water and important shipping routes. As an outdoors person, I want to protect the places I love. I spent some time learning about how climate change is affecting my favorite Great Lake. Lake Superior is being seriously and quickly harmed by the effects of climate change. We should all be aware of what those effects are. Today, I'll give you some background on Lake Superior, tell you a bit more about how it's warming, and then finally, we'll take a look at the continued effects of that warming. But first, let's take a moment to understand why Lake Superior is so important and learn a little bit more about it. There are two key facts you need to know about Lake Superior. It's really big and it's really cold. Lake Superior contains 10% of the world's fresh, unfrozen water. So that's anything that's not salt water and not tied up in a glacier. According to the Minnesota Sea Grant, 3 quadrillion gallons of water are in Lake Superior. And if you're like me, you find that kind of hard to visualize. Imagine this. All of North and South America be covered in a foot of water if Lake Superior just spread out all over the continent. So Lake Superior is really important to the world's freshwater resources. But we also need to understand that it is cold. Even in July, if I'm kayaking far away from shore, I need to wear a wetsuit in case I get dumped in. Because Lake Superior's surface temperature may vary, but below the surface, it remains a cool 38 degrees Fahrenheit all year round. However, the Washington Post reported this summer that on July 8th of 2020, so just a few months ago, the average temperature of the lake reached 55.8 degrees. That's 15 degrees above what it should be. I've put up this map from NASA showing the degree of warming across all of the Great Lakes. And when you look at it, you're like, well, Lake Superior is doing the best out of all of them. See, only the bottom half is warming. But look how far north Lake Superior is compared to the other Great Lakes. And it's warming from the bottom up. So we can see that this trend is continuing and it's impacting a lake that contains 10% of the world's fresh water. We need to pay attention to the effects of climate change on Lake Superior. Now that we understand a little bit more about the lake itself, let's learn more about how exactly it's warming. So there's 2 important ways for us to look at warming on Lake Superior. First of all, how it doesn't freeze or freezes. And second, what happens during the summer. First, let's talk about the winter. During winter, the lake will generally, historically, freeze over, or most of it will freeze. However, we're seeing a reduction in the amount of the lake frozen, so less of the lake is freezing over. We're also seeing the ice less thick, so there's less ice out on the lake, and then it spends less time frozen. So it'll freeze later in the winter and melt earlier in the spring. According to the Journal of Limnology, a journal that studies lakes and published recent research on Lake Superior, the Bayfield to Madeline Island ferry, which connects the small community of La Pointe on the island, Madeline Island, up in the Apostle Islands National Lakeshore, to the mainland, has been able to run throughout the winter for 3 of the last 10 years. Generally, residents on Madeline Island will access the mainland through a combination of a wind sled and, if the ice really gets thick, driving their cars on it. But for 3 of the last 10 years, they've just been able to take the ferry all year. That's not expected for Lake Superior. It should freeze over. Let's look at what happens in the summer then. So according to the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, remember, part of Lake Superior touches Canada too, the lake just gets warmer in the spring because it was less cold in the winter. And Lake Superior is warming faster than the area around it. So that little area where the lake is getting warmer faster than the rest of the surrounding area. And these small temperature changes can affect the lake. Lakes are really sensitive to these things. Now that we understand how it's warming, let's take a look at some of the effects. So there's some effects on the lake, and then there's some effects on the surrounding communities. Effects on the lake include algal blooms. So for those of us who've lived in Madison for a while, we've seen what happens when Monona gets an algae bloom and nobody can go swimming and you can't take your dog. Algae blooms happen when the lake gets warmer than it should be. And algae can make people and pets sick, and it can harm native fish species. And the Washington Post reported that we're seeing more and more algae on Lake Superior. There's also a rise in invasive species. So according to the Journal of Limnology, zebra mussels are starting to appear in ports in Lake Superior. And that's not good, considering that Lake Superior is a vital shipping route. It also impacts communities as well. Without lake recreation, many economies of the communities on Lake Superior will not do particularly well. Furthermore, commercial fishing operations are impacted because fish are less likely to get the food they need to survive if the lake gets warm. Now that we've understood the negative effects of climate change on Lake Superior, I hope you understand how fast this lake is changing and how vital it is to our state and our economy. Whether you enjoy recreation on Lake Superior or you just care about people having fresh water, it's important to understand that the warming of Lake Superior affects us all.